Yes, students, let me explain the structure of a dicotyledonous embryo. Okay, a dicotyledonous embryo consists of an embryonic axis. Just imagine this is an embryonic axis, and these are the cotyledons. These are the cotyledons. The portion above the level of cotyledon is called epicotyl, which terminates into plumule and finally to shoot. Okay? Whereas the portion which is cylindrical below the level of cotyledon is called hypocotyl. Okay? It is said to be hypocotyl, and it terminates into radical, which in future produces or develops into root. Is it clear? Now, when you consider a dicot, there are two cotyledons. Okay, there are said to be two cotyledons. Let me just show you the structure of a typical dicotyledonous embryo. Okay, you have to just start from here, proceed down, show two cotyledons, okay, and then come and end it here. That's all. Okay, this is the root cap. This is the root tip. This is the plumule, and these are cotyledons. Okay, two cotyledons. Is it clear? Yes, students. Last class you read about dicotyledonous embryo, isn't it? Let us pass on to the structure of monocotyledonous embryo. The very common example is grass. Now, all of us know that the name itself says monocotyledon. They have only one cotyledon called scutellum. It's a 1-mark question. What is the single cotyledon of monocots called? It is said to be scutellum. This is also present towards one side of the embryonic axis. Embryonic axis has epicotyl, hypocotyl. Epicotyl terminates into plumule, hypocotyl terminates to radical, isn't it? In the dicot we saw that the portion above the level of cotyledon was called epicotyl, and that terminates into plumule, and the portion below the level of cotyledon was called hypocotyl, which terminates into radical. But here we don't have two cotyledons, we have only one cotyledon, and it is towards one side, lateral side. So, let us see how is epicotyl, hypocotyl or plumule and radical situated. Okay, this is the diagram that you should remember. See, this is the shoot apex. Okay, this shoot apex is protected by a undifferentiated sheath which is called coleoptile. So, what is this now? This is the shoot apex. So, shoot apex is protected or covered by coleoptile. Okay. On the other hand, you can just see a single cotyledon. This is the single cotyledon that we see. So, what is the single cotyledon called? I told you it is called a scutellum. On the other hand, this extends down and forms the coleorhiza. What is a coleorhiza? See, this is the root cap. This is the radical. This radicle is covered by coleorhiza, shoot apex is covered by coleoptile. This is the single scutellum. Is it clear? So, just change little. This is the diagram of a monocotyledonous embryo. Let me repeat once more. Monocotyledonous embryo consists of only one cotyledon. That cotyledon is called scutellum. The portion above the level of cotyledon is said to be epicotyl. The portion below the level of cotyledon is said to be hypocotyl. Okay. This epicotyl has shoot apex covered by an undifferentiated sheath which is called coleoptile. Similarly, radicle is covered by an undifferentiated sheath which is called coleorhiza. This radicle is protected by root cap. This is the structure of a monocotyledonous embryo. See, if this is the cotyledon, so the upper portion is said to be what? The upper portion is said to be epicotyl and the lower portion is said to be hypocotyl. Okay. Epicotyl gives rise to plumule, you know that, and hypocotyl gives rise to radicle. Plumule later develops into shoot system, radicle later develops into root system. So, this is the structure of a monocotyledonous embryo. Is it clear? Okay. Yes, students. The next topic is fruit. Very easy. Please concentrate. Fruit is defined as fertilized, ripened ovary. Fruit is defined as a fertilized, ripened ovary. Why do we say ripened? Soon after fertilization, we do not get any fruit. There should be some changes. That means that particular fruit has to develop that particular character, maybe sweetness in mango or sour in other fruits, like that. So, we say post-fertilization should occur. So, that part is said to be ripened. Fruit is defined as a fertilized, ripened ovary. What did I end with? Ovary. Okay. So, if the fruit develops from entire ovary only, okay, if the fruit develops from entire ovary only, it is said to be true fruit. But what happens sometimes, along with the ovary, any other part of the flower, also takes part in the formation of fruit, then I call that as a false fruit or spurious fruit. Okay. What is a true fruit? Fruit developing from entire ovary only. What is a false fruit or spurious fruit? Fruit developing from any other part of the flower including ovary. That is what I have told here. Entire ovary plus any other part of the flower is said to be false fruit. Example for true fruit is mango and coconut as per to our syllabus. Then again, false fruit example is apple. Okay. Let us see now why is this said to be true, false, what are the changes, etc. True, false I have told you. What are the changes we see? Let us see. On the other hand, based on the water content in the fruit, fruits are classified into fleshy fruit and dry fruits. Okay. If the pericarp is fleshy with watery content, then we say fleshy fruit. But if the pericarp is dry, then we say it is dry fruit. Now comes the question, what is a pericarp? Fruit wall. Okay. fruit wall is called pericarp. Okay. Now, I told you during post-fertilization changes, number of changes I told you, and finally I told you ovary changes to fruit, isn't it? Ovary changes to fruit and ovary wall changes to fruit wall. It changes to fruit wall. This is otherwise called what? Pericarp. So, what is a pericarp? Fruit wall is said to be pericarp. That is with reference to fleshy fruit I am telling. So, pericarp is fleshy. Okay. So, what was I telling? Ovary changes to fruit, ovary wall changes to fruit wall or pericarp. So, fleshy fruits and dry fruits are the two types of fruits based on the water content present or absent in the pericarp. Is it clear? Let me tell the other details of the fruit. Yes, students, let me continue. In case of fleshy fruits, pericarp is differentiated into outer epicarp, middle mesocarp, and inner endocarp. Such differentiation is not seen in dry fruits. It is seen only in fleshy fruits. Now, under the fleshy fruits we have many types, but as per to the syllabus we are studying drupe. Under this drupe we have examples. One is mango, other is coconut. Okay. Then second type of fleshy fruit that we are studying is pome. Under that we have an example, apple. Under that we have an example, apple. So, for drupe, which is a fleshy fruit, we have mango and coconut. Both are true fruits. Okay. Under the fleshy fruits, we have a second type, that is pome. Example, apple, which is a false or a spurious fruit. Okay. Let me start with drupe. Example, mango. See, first sentence you have to write, this is an example for true fruit, fleshy fruit. Okay. And drupes are also called one-seeded stony fruit. I will tell you the reason. What are drupes called? They are said to be one-seeded stony fruits. First introduction is what? You have to write, drupe is a type of fleshy fruit wherein the pericarp is differentiated into epicarp, mesocarp and endocarp. Okay. And example is mango. This is a true fruit. Now, let me just show you. This is the epicarp, which is leathery. You have to describe. You can't tear that. Okay. Thereby we say it is leathery. Second, we have mesocarp, which is fleshy and juicy. So, this forms the edible portion. Which is the edible portion of mango? That is, in case of drupe, mango, which is the edible portion? We say mesocarp is fleshy and juicy, forms the edible portion that can be eaten. Finally, we have the endocarp. Okay. This endocarp, you have to describe the nature. How is it? It is hard and stony. Why do you say stony? It is very, very hard. When you just try to break it, you can hear the sound. They are made of sclerids. Okay. So, thereby we say they are stony fruit and it encloses a single seed. So, it encloses what? A single seed. Please remember, it encloses only one seed. I said drupes are called one-seeded stony fruit. Stony because endocarp is hard and stony. Yes, students. Let us see how it appears in coconut. So, here also first thing when they ask you, explain briefly drupe with reference to coconut. You have to write first point, it is an example for true fruit. Okay. Second, you have to write pericarp is differentiated into epicarp, mesocarp and endocarp. Next, it is an example for what? It is an example for one-seeded stony fruit. So, drupe again we are calling here one-seeded stony fruit. Now, imagine the entire coconut, not the one that is being peeled. Okay. Imagine there is a tender coconut. When you take a transverse section of that coconut, how does it appear? First part you can see a solid structure. Okay. This is the solid structure which is said to be the endocarp. This endocarp encloses, okay, a kernel, or we say it is a kernel, or we say it is a solid endosperm. So, this is the solid endosperm. You can hardly see, this is the solid endosperm. You can't see in white, thereby I am using this color. So, what is this color in the coconut? This is the solid endosperm. Okay. Let me show you. Normally, this portion what I have marked is solid endosperm. This forms the edible portion. Okay. This forms the edible portion. Now, surrounding this, what is this endocarp? How is it? Yes, that is the important point you have to write. It is hard and stony. Endocarp is hard and stony, enclosing a single seed which is the solid endosperm. Okay. What about the other parts here? Just have a look here. This is the fibrous portion that we are seeing. This is the fibrous portion. So, what is this now? This is the mesocarp which is fibrous. And finally, we have what? We have the epicarp. This epicarp is thin and smooth. I will come back again. See, when you take the transverse section of coconut, which is an example for drupe, you will find epicarp which is thin and smooth. It is outer epicarp which is thin and smooth. Then we will find followed by that is the middle mesocarp which is fibrous, and inner endocarp which is hard and stony, enclosing a single seed. So, this is the this is the explanation for drupe. Do not draw such a huge one, just for you to explain I drew. See, you have to just draw like this. This is the endocarp, this portion is the epicarp, this is the fibrous mesocarp, and the inner one, that is the solid endosperm which is nothing but the seed. Okay? That is what you tried. The endocarp encloses a solid endosperm. So, that means seed is an endospermous seed in case of coconut. How is the endocarp? Is it edible? No, it is hard and stony. Is mesocarp edible like in mango? No, there it was edible portion was what? There it was mesocarp which was fleshy and juicy, but here mesocarp is fibrous. So, here you can neither eat epicarp nor mesocarp nor endocarp. It is only the endospermous seed which is present inside the endocarp. Okay, let us see the next example, that is apple. Yes, let us see the details of apple, which is nothing but an example for pome. Okay, so what is the type of fruit here now? It is pome. It is one of the fleshy fruit. Example for pome is apple. Even though it is a fleshy fruit, okay, it is an example for false or spurious fruit. What is the speciality? See now, if this is calyx, corolla, androecium, gynoecium, etc., this is the stem portion, this is the thalamus, okay, thalamus. Let me also erase the calyx even. Let me just show you the thalamus. Now, what happens is, this thalamus overgrows the ovary that is present inside. Okay. Let me show you the diagram. If this is the stalk of the flower of apple, this is the thalamus. Okay. This is the thalamus. And this is the ovary with number of ovules. Now, concentrate. After fertilization, ovule changes to seed and ovary changes to fruit. So, this ovary will change into a fruit. Okay, ovary changes to fruit. That is, it has pericarp enclosing the seeds. But what happens? The thalamus overgrows the ovary. Thalamus overgrows the ovary. So, this is the thalamus which forms the edible portion. We are eating the false fruit because it is developing from thalamus, and we are throwing off the true fruit, that is pericarp. Now, when you take a transverse section of the apple, nobody takes. For our study, we just explained. These are the seeds that we show, okay, and that is covered by what? It is covered by endocarp, mesocarp and epicarp. It appears like this in TS with axile placentation, and this forms the thalamus. This is the thalamus. The peripheral part of thalamus, differentiates itself into the fruit wall. That is a speciality. Here we do not have any ovary, so that the ovary wall will develop into fruit wall. Okay. Peripheral part of the thalamus differentiates itself into fruit wall. This is the explanation for what? Pome, which is a fleshy fruit. It is an example of false or the spurious fruit. Example is what under that? Apple. In this case, thalamus is edible, thereby we say it is a false fruit, but ovary just changes to pericarp enclosing seeds. Okay. Yes. Let us pass on to the next topic, that is seed. Yes, students, let me explain seed and its characters. Okay. Dicotyledonous seed and monocotyledonous seed. First of all, what is a seed? Seed is a fertilized ovule. Earlier we said, when I was explaining flower, I told you ovule is a future seed. In turn, I explained, means what? Means after fertilization, ovule changes to seed, thereby ovule is said to be a future seed. Okay. So, ovule is called a future seed. In other words, we say after fertilization, ovule changes to seed, isn't it? Then, what happens to the integuments? Then what is a seed coat? Everything let us see. Before that, What does a seed contain? It consists of number 1, seed coat. Okay. Second, cotyledons. And third, embryonic axis. So, what does the seed contain? A seed coat. Okay. This seed coat has two layers, outer hard layer which is called testa and inner thin said to be tegmen. So, seed coat has outer testa hard and inner tegmen thin and smooth. On the other hand, one or two cotyledons are present rich in reserve food. Okay? Because the food that is present in the cotyledons is necessary for the growth of an embryo. Now, what about this embryonic axis? Embryonic axis consists of plumule, radicle, epicotyl, hypocotyl, okay, coleoptile and coleorhiza. So, plumule, radicle, coleoptile, hypocotyl, and it consists of coleorhiza. Okay. Let us see the other details of it. When I explained about the nucellus, I told you this is the embryo sac, isn't it? And this nucellus supplies nourishment to the cells that are developing in the embryo sac. Now, what happens after fertilization? This egg becomes zygote. Later, zygote after post-fertilization becomes embryo. After fertilization, egg changes to zygote. Now, after post-fertilization, zygote changes to embryo. This phase wherein the zygote has to develop into embryo, the zygote has to undergo division. So, for the division of the zygote so as to form an embryo, food is necessary. The reserve food will be supplied by the endosperm. Hope you remember what's an endosperm. The central cell will become the primary endosperm cell after fertilization. Then after post-fertilization, PEC changes to endosperm. I am just recalling, okay. So, this endosperm supplies nourishment to the zygote which is dividing so as to form an embryo. Now, the point is, this endosperm may be completely used up by the developing embryo or it may remain little. If it remains, we say residual endosperm. If it does not remain, we just say endosperm is completely used up. So, if the endosperm is used up completely, then the seed is said to be non-endospermous or spermic seed, or it is also called non-albuminous seed if it is completely used up. But if the residue remains, that is remains of the endosperm is still there, then I call the seed as endospermic seed, or we say albuminous seed. Once more I will repeat, if there is no endosperm and it is completely used up, then I call the seed as non-endospermic seed or non-albuminous seed. Whereas, if the residue is there of the endosperm, then we use the word endospermic seed or albuminous seed. Is it clear? Yes, student. Knowing the general explanation and structure of a seed. Let us pass on to a particular one, that is the structure of a dicotyledonous seed. As usual, first you have to give an introduction saying that seed is a fertilized ovule, and seed consists of number 1 seed coat, okay, and the second cotyledons, and third embryo. What is the seed coat? It's nothing but the covering of the seed. It has two walls or layers. One is the outer testa and the second inner tegmen. What's the difference? Testa is outer one and it is a bit hard, it's protective in nature. Whereas tegmen is bit thin and it is found inside. It is not hard like testa. Second, under the general explanation, I told you cotyledon, 1 or 2 cotyledons. But here we are talking with reference to dicot, thereby specifically to say that presence of 2 cotyledons. Presence of 2 cotyledons. What about the embryonic axis? There I told you the embryo consists of the embryonic axis with plumule, radicle, epicotyl, hypocotyl, coleoptile, coleorhiza. In dicot, what is present? Let us see. It consists of, embryo consists of the embryonic axis with epicotyl, hypocotyl, okay, and then plumule and radicle. Let us see what is it. See, these are the 2 cotyledons, okay, 2 cotyledons. There is a scar, white scar here, that is nothing but the hilum. Just above the scar is the opening, which is called micropyle. Through this micropyle, the water enters and facilitates seed germination. Okay. With this hilum, the seed attaches to the fruit. Just above the hilum is a micropyle through which water and oxygen enters and facilitates the germination of seed. Okay. This cotyledon is rich in reserve food. It is rich in reserve food. Now, when the embryo develops, it differentiates into the following. What is it? See, these are the 2 cotyledons. This is the embryonic axis. The portion above the level of cotyledon is said to be epicotyl, okay, which later develops into plumule and plumule develops into shoot system. On the other hand, what about this? This is the hypocotyl. It develops into radicle, which in turn gives rise to root system. Okay, it gives rise to root system. This is what we talk with reference to the embryo. Regarding the cotyledons, I told you it has the reserve food. Okay, finally, the seed may have the endosperm, wherein we say endospermic seed, or if it doesn't have, we use the word non-endospermic seed. It is said to be non-endospermic seed. Is it clear? Okay. I'll just show you how to sketch the diagram. See, this is the hypocotyl region of a seed. This is the hypocotyl region of a seed. This is the embryo. This is the cotyledon. This is the endosperm. And finally, this is the seed coat. Okay. So, this is the hypocotyl, endosperm. This is the cotyledon. And finally, this is the seed coat. Okay. Yes, students. By now, you must be familiar with the terms like endospermic seed and non-endospermic seed. Now, passing on to monocotyledonous seed, orchids are example for non-endospermic seed. Okay, whereas maize is an example for endospermic seed. Let me just show you the diagram. See, this is an maize seed. This is the single cotyledon, which is called the scutellum. Single cotyledon. Single cotyledon of monocot is called the scutellum. Okay, this portion is the endosperm. Now, endosperm is separated from the embryo with the help of an aileron or proteinaceous layer. Aileron or proteinaceous layer. Let me just show you. This is the aileron. Okay, this is the aileron layer. What about this? This is the pericarp plus seed coat. The pericarp and the seed coat are fused in case of maize. Followed by that is the endosperm, which is separated by an aileron layer with that of an embryo. Embryo consists of the embryonic axis, which shows this is the plumule, this is the radicle. Plumule is covered by a sheath and radicle is also covered by a sheath. The sheath which covers plumule is called coleoptile and the sheath which covers radicle is called coleorhiza. Okay? The entire endosperm is separated from the scutellum by an layer which is called epithelium. This is the epithelium. Epithelium separates the scutellum from endosperm. Aileron layer separates endosperm from embryo. Is it clear? So, this is the structure of a monocotyledonous seed. Example, maize. Very common question. Okay, I'll just repeat. Some of the seeds are endospermic, some of them are non-endospermic. In case of monocotyledonous seed, example, the seeds of orchids are non-endospermic, whereas the seed of maize is said to be endospermic. Okay, the maize itself is said to be endospermic. In case of maize, we find that pericarp and the seed coat are fused. Thereby, we say that this is a common wall or a common layer. On the other hand, we have endosperm separated from a single cotyledon of the monocot, which is called scutellum. Very common 1 mark question. What is the single cotyledon of monocot called? It is said to be scutellum. So, the endosperm and the scutellum are separated by epithelium, whereas the aleurone layer separates endosperm and the embryo. Embryo consists of embryonic axis wherein plumule is covered by coleoptile, okay, and radicle is covered by coleorhiza. This is the structure of a monocotyledonous seed. Is it clear? Okay. Structure of dicotyledonous embryo. Typical dicotyledonous embryo consists of an embryonic axis with 2 cotyledons. The portion of the embryonic axis above the level of cotyledon is said to be epicotyl, and that terminates to plumule or the baby shoot. The cylindrical portion below the level of the cotyledon is said to be hypocotyl, which terminates into. The root tip is covered by calyptra, root cap. Example, mango, apple, radish, rose, etc. Some of the dicot plants. See, I told you this is a zygote, it undergoes division, 2-cell stage, and then it forms a globular structure, thereby globular embryo, and this is somewhat heart-shaped embryo, and this is a matured embryo. Here we find the presence of the embryonic axis with plumule, then radicle, 2 cotyledons, hypocotyl, and root cap. Okay. Structure of monocotyledonous embryo. A typical monocotyledonous embryo consists of only 1 cotyledon, which is called scutellum. In the grass family, the cotyledon is situated on one side, that's the lateral side of the embryo sac, and is called scutellum, which is a single cotyledon of monocot. Very common 1-mark question. Even these are common for NEET and 1 mark. Okay, and this is very important. Please go through this. Now, what is a fruit? Fruit is a fertilized, ripened ovary. Some fruits are formed without the act of fertilization. Such fruits are called parthenocarpic fruits, fruits which develop without the act of fertilization. What is a fruit wall called? Then pericarp. This pericarp may be dry or fleshy depending on the amount of water present in them. When it is fleshy, which one? Pericarp, when fleshy, is differentiated into outer epicarp, middle mesocarp, and inner endocarp. Types of fruit based on the development. Very, very important 1 mark question. If the fruit develops from the entire ovary only, it is said to be true fruit. But if the fruit develops from any other part of a flower like calyx, corolla, or including perianth, then we say, or including perianth or sometimes even the thalamus, it is said to be false fruit or spurious fruit. We have a very common example. Fruits develop from any other part of a flower, including ovary, is said to be spurious fruit. Example, apple, strawberry, cashew, etc. Okay? Yes, true fruits. I told you the meaning. If it develops from entire ovary, under that we have 2 examples. One is drupe and the other is pome. Okay, one is the drupe for true fruit, and pome we have example for false fruit. Under drupe we have 2 examples, mango and coconut. Please remember, Drupes are called what? One-seeded stony fruits, because only one seed is present and they are enclosed within a hard endocarp which is very stony in nature. Thereby we say drupes are one-seeded stony fruits. So let us see. Drupe. It's a type of fleshy fruit developing from monocarpellary superior ovary enclosing a single seed. Mango. In mango, epicarp is thick and leathery, mesocarp is fleshy and juicy edible portion, and endocarp is hard and stony, enclosing a single seed. Coconut. In coconut, epicarp is thin, mesocarp is fibrous. It's not edible like in case of mango. Endocarp is hard and stony, same like mango. All drupes have hard endocarp enclosing a single seed, thereby they are said to be single-seeded stony fruits. Passing on to the false fruit, we have an example pome, example apple. It is a type of fleshy fruit. In this case, thalamus overgrows the ovary. See, if this is the ovary, this is the thalamus. Thalamus overgrows the ovary. So thereby we say thalamus is developing into fruit. This true fruit is thrown and false fruit is eaten. Peripheral part of the thalamus differentiates into the skin of the fruit. Pericarp is hard enclosing seeds. Thalamus is edible, hence called false fruit. Okay. Yes, students, seed. This is also a favorite question for the paper setter, especially the monocot seed, which is a common question that is given. Ovules after fertilization develop into seed. So what are seeds? Ovules after fertilization develops into seeds. So we can say that ovule is a future seed. Ovules are future seeds. Okay. Seed consists of seed coat or testa, an embryo made up of embryonic axis and one or two cotyledons. Okay. Structure of a dicot seed. The seed coat is the outer covering of seed. It is differentiated into outer testa and inner tegmen. The scar on the seed coat through which the developing seeds are attached to the fruit is called hilum. Just above the hilum is the presence of a small pore called micropyle that helps in the entry of water and oxygen. When it is during germination, within the seed coat is the embryonic axis with two cotyledons, which is fresh and full of reserve food material. Okay, we can say it's almost fleshy. For example, in castor, endosperm formed as a result of double fertilization is a food storing tissue. Embryonic axis consists of plumule which develops into shoot system and radicle which develops into root system. Seed with a residual endosperm. Endosperm should be used up and will be used up by the embryo during its development. But sometimes what happens is it remains. Thereby we say residual endosperm is called endospermic seed. And the seed without residual endosperm is said to be non-endospermic seed. We also call this as albuminous seed and this as non-albuminous seed. Some of the monocotyledons seed show endospermic presence, but some are non-endospermic. Some of them show the presence of endosperm, but some of them do not show. Example, orchids. In maize, which is a cereal, the seed coat is membranous and fused with the fruit wall or pericarp. Maize is an example for endospermic seed. And the endosperm separated from the embryo by an alluron layer is a proteinaceous layer. Okay, we can see that the endosperm is being separated from the embryo by an alluron layer. This is said to be proteinaceous layer. Okay, embryo is small and situated at the end of the endosperm. Please remember, what is an aileron layer? It's a proteinaceous layer that separates the endosperm from embryo. Okay, endosperm from embryo. I'll show you here. See, this is the aileron layer which separates the endosperm from the embryo. All this together, we say it's the embryo by an proteinaceous layer, that is aileron layer. See here, there is a plumule which is covered by coleoptile, radicle is covered by coleorhiza. This gives rise to shoot system, this gives rise to root system, and the single cotyledon is said to be scutellum. Seed is a fertilized matured ovule, which is the final product of sexual reproduction. It consists of seed coats, 1 or 2 layers, having an opening called micropyle. This is an additional information. I'm just brushing up. Outer layer is called testa and inner layer is called tegmen. Okay. The seed coat has 2 layers, outer testa which is hard and inner tegmen which is soft and smooth. Cotyledons, 1 or 2, rich in reserve foot material, embryonic axis with epicotyl, hypocotyl, plumule, radicle, coleoptile and coleorhiza. Non-endospermic seed or non-albuminous seed, and here endospermic seed or albuminous seed. The seed with residual endosperm, example castor. Here there is no residue of the endosperm, example coconut.